The night they handed me the eviction notice in my own living room, I didn't scream. I just smiled, because they had no idea what I was about to do next. I never knew silence could feel this loud. It was the kind of silence that presses against your ribs, sits on your lungs, and demands your body to freeze. The kind of silence that only happens right before something breaks. Something important. Something irreversible. Something you'll regret for the rest of your life. That was the silence I walked into the night my husband and his sister handed me the eviction notice for a house I bought. The air felt too still the moment I stepped inside. I remember dropping my keys into the glass bowl near the door, hearing them clink loudly, too loudly, like the sound was echoing in an empty cave. But the house wasn't empty. They were waiting for me. My husband Daniel sat on the sofa, elbows on his knees, looking at me the way a stranger would look at another stranger they disliked on. Sight, cold, detached, almost rehearsed. And next to him, leaning back comfortably like she owned the place, was his sister Sabrina. Her legs were crossed, a smug half-smile on her lips. A smile that made my stomach twist. I closed the door gently, clutching the strap of my handbag. "What is going on?" I asked, scanning their faces. "Sit down, Emily," Daniel said. I didn't move. "Why?" Sabrina clicked her tongue. God, she's already being dramatic. "Just sit." It was the first red flag of the night. The way she spoke, like she expected obedience. Like this was her house. Like I was standing in her living room. Reluctantly, I sat down on the single armchair facing them. I rested my bag on my lap like a shield. Daniel took a deep breath. "We need to talk. It's important." He slid a stack of papers across the coffee table toward me. I didn't touch them. "Daniel, what are these?" He didn't answer. So Sabrina did. "It's an eviction notice," she said casually, almost cheerfully. Like she was announcing dinner, not my removal from the home I paid for. My vision tunneled for a second. "A what?" Daniel cleared his throat. "We're asking you to leave the house." I blinked slowly, trying to understand whether I was hallucinating, dreaming, tired, anything other than this being real. "You're asking me to leave my house?" "It's not your house," Sabrina said, leaning forward. "It belongs to the family." "The family," I repeated, stunned. "The house that I paid for? With my salary? The one I bought before we were even married?" "Yeah, that one," she said, shrugging. "We're staying." "You're not." Daniel avoided my eyes. That hurt far more than the words. "I don't understand," I whispered. "What did I do?" Here came the second red flag. Daniel didn't answer me. Sabrina did. "You're toxic, Emily. Controlling. Emotionally abusive. Daniel can't live like this anymore. We talked to a legal advisor. You have to vacate the property within 10 days. Emotionally abusive." The words hit like a slap. I inhaled sharply. "Sabrina," I said slowly, "you moved in here 2 months ago, temporarily, because you needed a place to stay, until you found a job, and I let you stay out of kindness." She scoffed. "You let me stay because you had no choice. This is a family home. I'm Daniel's sister. That gives me more right to this place than you." Another blow. I turned to my husband. "Daniel, tell me she's joking, please." He refused to look at me. "Daniel?" My voice cracked. He exhaled, pressing his palms against his forehead. "I'm sorry, Emily. Things aren't working anymore. I think it's best if you go stay somewhere else." I stared at him, my chest slowly going numb. Somewhere else, as if I was some tenant overstaying a lease. I picked up the paper with trembling fingers. The words blurred at first. My heartbeat was too loud, my breathing too shallow. But when everything came into focus, my blood ran cold. Because among the typed legal jargon and false claims, I saw one thing that made my hands go ice cold. My signature at the bottom of the page. "What is this?" I whispered. "Where did you get this?" Daniel swallowed. "You signed it last week." "No," I said firmly. "No, I didn't. That's not my signature. Someone forged it." "Not this again," Sabrina said, rolling her eyes. "Just accept it. You agreed to move out. Stop making it difficult." My breath hitched. "You forged my signature," I said, looking directly at her. She smiled. Not even a guilty smile, a victorious one. "Prove it." Her tone was taunting, triumphant. Daniel's posture stiffened. He looked uncomfortable, guilty even, but not guilty enough to defend me. Not guilty enough to stop what was happening. Something inside me cracked. "Sabrina," I said carefully, Why are you doing this? What do you want? She leaned back on the sofa, her eyes glittering with something dark and selfish. I want my brother to have the life he deserves, she said. And you're in the way. I slowly stood up from the chair, the eviction notice dangling in my hand. This is insane, I whispered. You two planned this? Daniel finally looked at me, but not with love. Not with the softness he once had. It was a look of someone who had already chosen a side, and it wasn't mine. I'm sorry, he repeated quietly. But my sister needs me. And I don't? The words escaped before I could stop them. He closed his eyes for a second. This is for the best. For who? My voice cracked again. For me? Or for you and your sister who's been whispering poison in your ear since the day she walked in? Sabrina laughed. A sharp, ugly, victorious laugh. You really think Daniel listens to me? Sweetheart, he's wanted you gone long before I even moved in. I just gave him the courage to do what he should have done. My heart dropped into my stomach. That was her goal. That was her weapon. Divide and conquer. So this is it? I whispered. After everything I've done for you? The extra shifts? The bills? The mortgage? The house? Daniel stood up suddenly, his voice rising in forced authority. You have 10 days. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized something chilling. The man standing in front of me wasn't my husband anymore. He wasn't even human to me. He was a stranger wearing my husband's face. I opened my mouth, but no sound came. 10 days. 10 days to leave my own home. Sabrina stood up too, walking toward me slowly. She tapped the eviction notice in my hand. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, she said softly, like she was comforting a child. Pack your things, sign the final form, and walk away quietly. It'll be easier for everyone. Easier. For everyone but me. I looked down at the forged signature again. My pulse tightened. My vision sharpened, and something inside me, something I didn't know existed, woke up. Not anger, not grief, something colder, sharper, dangerously calm. I folded the eviction notice neatly, slid it into my handbag, zipped it shut. Then I looked both of them in the eyes and said the first sentence. It came to me naturally. Okay. Sabrina blinked. What? I said okay. If you want me gone, I smiled a little. Deep, calm, terrifyingly calm. I'll leave. Daniel's eyebrows pulled together. You will? Yes, I said simply. Sabrina smirked, too quickly. Good, that's mature of you. But what she didn't realize, what neither of them realized, was that every beat of my heart was whispering something entirely different. You made the wrong enemy. You tried to break the wrong woman, and you have absolutely no idea what I'm about to do to you both. I walked to the bedroom without another word, closed the door behind me, leaned my back against it, and for the first time since this began, I didn't cry. I smiled, because now I knew exactly what they wanted, which meant I could destroy them with precision. They thought they had pushed me out. They didn't know they had just set me free, free to fight strategically, free to plan without suspicion, free to prepare for the moment I'd turn everything around. And while they slept peacefully that night believing they had won, I stayed awake forming the blueprint of their downfall. And the best part? I hadn't even started yet. 2 months earlier, if someone had told me Sabrina would be the reason my marriage collapsed, I would have laughed. Back then, she was just an occasional annoyance. Someone Daniel complained about, but still protected because she was family. I never imagined she would one day walk into our home and begin rearranging my life like furniture. Her arrival wasn't dramatic, at least not in the beginning. It started with a phone call. Daniel was pacing in the living room, rubbing the back of his neck. It's Sabrina, he whispered urgently. She's in trouble. When he hung up, his face was pale. She lost her job. She has nowhere to go for a while. She needs a place to stay. A place to stay. Temporary, he said. I agreed, of course. How could I say no? She was his sister, and she was struggling. I told him she could stay for a week or two. But when she arrived, dragging 2 oversized suitcases and a box full of random things, something felt off. Very off. She hugged Daniel tightly, clinging to him like the world was ending. But when she pulled away and looked at me, her expression shifted. Cold, calculating, almost assessing. Thanks for letting me stay, she said. But her eyes were scanning the house, not meeting mine. "It's no problem," I replied, forcing a smile. "You can use the guest room." "Oh," she said, shrugging. "I already put my stuff in the master bedroom. Daniel told me he'd help me sort things." My heart stalled. "The master bedroom?" She blinked innocently. "What? There's more space? Besides, you two can sleep in the other room for a bit. It's not like it's permanent." Daniel avoided my eyes even then. That was the first boundary she crossed. It wasn't the last. Within days, our home became different. Sabrina started waking up earlier than me, rearranging the kitchen cabinets as if they belonged to her. She swapped my spices, moved my mugs, donated things I used daily because they looked old. I confronted her gently. "Hey, please don't throw away things without asking me." "Oh, relax," she cut in. "You're so sensitive, I'm helping. This place needs updates anyway." Daniel chuckled from the couch, not even looking up from his phone. "That's just how she is, Em. She means well." But she didn't. Soon she took Daniel's time too. Every night they whispered in the living room after I went to bed. Every morning he repeated her exact words to me like they were his own thoughts. "You stress too much. You're controlling. You're too emotional. You need to relax and stop acting like this house is only yours." Every word he said, she had said first. I watched him slip away from me, one comment at a time. Then Sabrina started using subtle manipulation. I made breakfast, but only for Daniel. I cleaned the living room, so don't make a mess. "I'm handling the bills now. It's better if you stay out of it." "Daniel, didn't I tell you she'd react this way?" Everything I said was dramatic. Every concern was overthinking. Every boundary was selfish. Slowly, room by room, she invaded the house. But the scariest moment came one night when I overheard her whispering to Daniel, "You deserve a life without her controlling everything. She thinks she owns you. She thinks she owns this house." Daniel didn't defend me. He didn't say a single word. And that was the night I realized her arrival wasn't an accident. It was the beginning of a takeover. I knew something had shifted the moment I walked into the living room one evening and saw Daniel and Sabrina laughing quietly together, a shared joke I wasn't part of. Their eyes met, almost like a secret handshake. My heart sank. I tried to speak, but my voice caught in my throat. Every word I wanted to say seemed meaningless against the invisible wall they'd built between us. Sabrina's smile was sharp, almost predatory. She leaned close to Daniel and whispered something I couldn't hear, but the look on his face said it all. Obedience. For the first time, I felt the true weight of isolation. The house I had built with my own hands, the life I thought was safe, was being systematically taken from me. And yet, I couldn't fight. Not yet. I had to watch, learn, and wait, because every family has its secrets. And I was beginning to suspect that Sabrina wasn't here just for comfort. She was here for control. That night, as I lay in bed pretending to sleep, I heard whispers in the dark. Daniel agreeing, Sabrina planning. And deep inside, something snapped. I decided then, if they wanted a war, they wouldn't know it had already begun. It was late one night when I finally discovered the truth, the reason behind Sabrina's sudden obsession with my home and Daniel's silent compliance. I had gone to the kitchen for a glass of water when I heard whispers coming from the living room. Carefully, I crept closer, pressed my ear against the cracked door, and froze. "And we can push her out before she even realizes," Sabrina was saying, her voice low and cunning. "Once she's gone, we can get the house, and the rest of the money will be enough to cover everything." Daniel hesitated. "Are you sure this will work?" "Yes," she replied sharply. "She thinks she owns everything, but she has no idea how much leverage we have. By the time she figures it out, it'll be too late." I staggered back, heart pounding. Their plan wasn't just about staying in the house. It was about taking everything from me. My savings, my possessions, my security, all their targets. The betrayal burned hotter than I had imagined. Daniel, the man I trusted most, was complicit. And Sabrina, she was no innocent victim in need of help. I sank to the floor behind the kitchen counter, hands trembling. This wasn't just a home invasion. It was a calculated coup. And now that I knew their motive, the stakes had changed. I wasn't just fighting to stay in my house anymore. I was fighting to protect everything I had earned. And I was ready to play their game, but on my terms. I sat alone in the dark of my bedroom, the eviction notice crumpled in my hands. The weight of betrayal pressed down on me, heavier than any mortgage or bill ever could. Every whispered word I had overheard, every subtle manipulation, every lie, it all crashed into me at once. My husband, the person I trusted above all, had chosen her. My home, my sanctuary, had become their playground. But in that suffocating darkness, a strange clarity emerged. Tears blurred my vision, but they didn't weaken me. They sharpened me. I began taking pictures, recording conversations, noting every lie and every manipulation, every receipt, every document, every small detail they believed I ignored became my ammunition. And in that moment, I made a silent vow. They had started a war, but I would finish it. And when I did, they would regret ever underestimating me. The next morning, the house felt colder than usual, like even the walls were holding their breath. Daniel and Sabrina sat at the dining table, speaking in low voices. Their heads snapped up when I walked in, but neither said a word. Fine, silence was easier to manage than lies. I poured myself a cup of coffee and walked straight to the study, the one place Sabrina hadn't touched yet. Inside, I closed the door, set my phone on the desk, and opened the folder I hadn't looked at in months, the house papers. My fingers trembled, not with fear this time, but with anticipation. If they wanted to take the house, I needed to know exactly what they thought they had over me. I flipped through the documents, and my breath hitched. My name, only my name. The house was purchased 2 years before I married Daniel. He had no legal claim to it. Not a percentage, not a share, not even a clause. And Sabrina, she had absolutely nothing. A slow, fierce smile tugged at my lips. They were plotting to take something that never belonged to them in the first place. The eviction notice Daniel had signed wasn't even valid. He legally couldn't evict me from a house he didn't own. I felt a surge of strength rush through me. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't scared. I wasn't confused. I was in control. Just then, a soft creak echoed outside the study door. I turned. Sabrina was standing there, arms crossed, expression sour. "You've been hiding in here a lot lately," she said. "Planning something?" I placed the documents calmly on the desk. "Why, worried?" Her eyes narrowed, but she tried to mask it with a smirk. "You're acting strange, Emily. It's not a good look. Daniel and I just want what's fair." I stepped closer, meeting her gaze without blinking. "What's fair?" I repeated softly. "Yes, we'll talk about what's fair." For a moment, she faltered, a flicker of uncertainty passing across her face. She wasn't expecting resistance. Not from me. Not from the quiet wife she assumed she could bulldoze. But that version of me was gone. After she left, I sat back down and pulled out my notebook. I wrote a list, not of revenge, but of strategy. By the following week, Daniel and Sabrina were convinced they had won. They whispered in corners, smirked when I passed by, and treated me as though I had already surrendered. Perfect. I let them believe it. I walked slower, spoke softer, laughed less. I avoided their eyes, carrying myself as though I were exhausted, fragile, and broken. Sabrina, smug as ever, would comment, "See? She's finally learning her place." Daniel nodded along, completely unaware that every step I took was part of a larger plan. At night, I would sit in my bedroom, reviewing every document, every recording, every subtle clue I had collected. I studied their habits, the times they left the house, the moments when Daniel's pride got the better of him, the lies Sabrina told to manipulate him. I wasn't defeated, not at all. I was gathering power, and the best part? They celebrated too early. One evening, they threw a small, smug little victory dinner, toasting to their cleverness. I smiled politely, raised my glass, and said nothing. They didn't notice the cold spark in my eyes, the quiet determination hiding behind my soft smile. Because soon, every lie, every deceit, every ounce of arrogance they had displayed would be their undoing, and they wouldn't know it until it was far too late. I was no longer just the wife. I was no longer just the homeowner. I was the storm waiting patiently before it struck. And when it did, Daniel and Sabrina would finally realize the cost of underestimating me. The moment had finally come. For weeks I had observed, documented, and planned. Every whisper, every lie, every petty manipulation had been recorded, every irregularity noted, every weakness catalogued. Sabrina's arrogance, Daniel's blind trust in her, their shared underestimation of me, all of it was ammunition. I waited until the perfect moment, a Saturday evening when they were hosting their celebratory gathering in my living room, smugly congratulating themselves on their supposed victory. I had stayed in my bedroom, pretending to be exhausted, giving the impression that I had lost my will to fight. Then I executed my move. I walked into the living room, calm, collected, carrying a small folder with everything they believed they had hidden from me. Every manipulated text message, every forged document, every recorded conversation that proved their deceit. I placed it gently on the coffee table. Sabrina looked up, puzzled. "What's this?" she asked, voice dripping with condescension. I smiled faintly. "Oh, just some light reading. I thought you'd enjoy reviewing your own scheming." Daniel's face went pale. He opened the folder, flipping through pages quickly. His mouth opened and closed, words failing him. Sabrina's smug smile faltered. This isn't, you can't." "Oh, I can," I interrupted softly, each word deliberate, sharp. "You forged signatures, manipulated the truth, and tried to take what's legally mine. Everything you've done, every trick, every lie, it's all documented here. And now, everyone knows." The room went silent. Daniel's shoulders slumped. His confidence had evaporated. Sabrina's eyes narrowed, but there was fear there, barely concealed behind her defiance. I leaned in closer, lowering my voice so only they could hear. "You thought I was weak. You thought I would fold. You thought I would surrender my home, my money, my life. But you underestimated me. And that was your first mistake." The realization hit them both like a thunderclap. They finally understood the scale of their error. And in that moment, I didn't just regain my power, I owned it. For the first time in weeks, I felt pure, exhilarating control. And the best part? This was only the beginning. I was no longer reacting. I was striking. And when the dust settled, they would regret ever trying to destroy me. The next few days were pure chaos for Daniel and Sabrina. I watched from the sidelines as their arrogance crumbled piece by piece. Friends, neighbors, even their colleagues began to see the cracks in their carefully constructed image. Sabrina's smirk vanished the moment someone questioned her motives, and Daniel could no longer defend the lies he had so easily believed. Every lie they had told, every manipulation they had orchestrated, was now exposed. One evening they confronted me, desperation etched into their faces. "You can't do this," Daniel shouted, voice trembling. "Oh, but I already have," I replied, calm as ever. "You tried to take what was mine by deceit and force. Now you face the consequences." Sabrina's glare burned, but she knew deep down they had lost. They had underestimated me. For weeks, they had controlled the narrative, convinced that I was powerless. But the moment I took a step back, watched and planned, everything changed. And now, the empire of lies they built on my weakness was collapsing. For the first time, I felt relief and satisfaction coursing through me. They had made their moves, but I had made mine, and I would not stop until they truly understood the price of underestimating me. Weeks later, the dust had settled. The house was quiet again, but this time it wasn't empty. It belonged to me, fully, completely. Daniel and Sabrina had left, their arrogance replaced by bitter lessons and the heavy weight of consequences. The documents I had compiled, the evidence of their deceit, had forced them out of the home they thought they could claim. Friends and family whispered about the scandal, but I didn't care. Their opinion no longer mattered. I walked through the rooms, each one a reminder of my perseverance. The living room, once a battlefield of manipulation and whispers, now echoed only with my own calm footsteps. The study, where I had discovered the truth, became my sanctuary. For the first time in months, I felt free. Free from lies, free from betrayal, and free from the fear that had kept me small. I had learned a vital truth. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, calculated, and unstoppable. I picked up my phone and blocked both Daniel and Sabrina. The final tie severed. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the house in warm golden light. I stepped onto the balcony, breathed deeply, and smiled. This was my life, my home, my rules. And now, finally, I could live for myself. Without fear, without manipulation, and without anyone daring to underestimate me again. The war was over, and I had won. If this story kept you watching till the end, imagine what's coming next. Subscribe now and join the family.